even when I'm down. Got my head in the clouds and my feet on the ground. I got big dreams, gonna make them true.
Yeah, we got big dreams here in the Genius Lab, and we want to help you make your dreams come true. And, you know, the theme of the Genius Lab has always been to help you realize your greatness. And I'm starting a series today, and this is knocking my socks off. This is some work that I've been doing for the last year or so that has made a profound impact on my life, and I want to share it with you because we just started the fourth quarter of 2022, and then we're moving into 2023. And in the cosmology that I teach, each year is associated with an element of the 5-element system that I learned from the Dagara people in West Africa. And the 5 elements are fire, water, earth, mineral, and nature. And each one of these has their own unique energy that it carries. So each year kind of has a different theme. We're in a fire year currently, and the theme of the fire year is inspiration, passion, clear vision, and spiritual connection. And so it's a powerful year of things burning away so that we can gain clarity. And one of the things that I've been doing a lot of this year is cowrie shell readings, helping people find clarity and confidence. Because, of course, the more clear you are, the more confident you are. The more confident you are, the more courageous you are to make moves that get you in the direction of your desired outcome. That said, we're moving into a nature year in 2023. Nature is magic and transformation. And as you can imagine, magic can be a little unstable, and transformation, hopefully you're clear on how you want to transform. Otherwise, it's kind of like taking your hand off the steering wheel and letting your car drive wherever it wants to. So what I do this time of year is often I do cowrie shell readings to help bring clarity, and there's a session. It's called the GeniusLab session. It's on tobychristensen.com. And the thing that we do there, and this is a good thing to do once a year, is we revisit your core values, your core beliefs. We look at why you do what you do. We look at how you view yourself, how you view others, and how you view the world that you live in. And then we set goals or intentions that will lead you towards your desired outcome based on these things. Because when you're setting goals or when you're setting intentions, if your goal and intention is not in alignment with your core value, it's not going to happen. But you subconsciously get this thing chopped off, and you don't even realize why. And I have people that come to me and they go, for years, I've been following the steps. I've been doing my meditation, da-da-da-da-da. And then we get into their core values and we find out things, or core beliefs. And we find out, I had a big killer one for me when I was working with a coach years ago and I developed this program. He asked me, he said, so I was having an issue with building my business. And I'm like, it gets to a certain point and then it just stops and then it diminishes. And then when I'm struggling again, it comes back up. And it was just driving me crazy. And he said, oh, what did your parents tell you about rich people? And I thought, well, what does that have to do with anything? And I remember my dad getting so mad at these people that had all this money. My dad was a school teacher. We did not have money as kids. But he was so antagonistic towards people with money that I realized that subconsciously I had this thing like, if you're rich, you're an asshole, or you're a bad person, or you're a liar, or you're a cheater, or whatever. And my coach started laughing and he said, your subconscious loves you so much it will not let you be one of those things because that's not you. And so it's fighting against your goals of making more money, are fighting against your core values, which of course then lies into your core beliefs of you're capable of it, or you will only be a good person, or however it, there's a million different scenarios. But the bottom line is, when your core values and core beliefs are not in alignment with your goals, you're never going to make them, or you're going to struggle miserably to get them. So hook up, check my, go to tobychristensen.com and look in the services, and you can find the Genius Lab to find out more about it. And And that's that. The other thing that I'm going to talk to you about today, and this is the beginning of a series, and I don't know how many podcasts this is going to last, but it's going to be a while. This is revolutionary stuff that is so potent. And this is about self-sabotage. And I want to help you realize your greatness by overcoming self-sabotage. Now, the very first, you look at it and you go, that's astronomical. I've been doing that my whole life. Yes, most of us have. And when we break this down, the very first thing that we need to look at, and some of you might be there, which is why you're listening to this. The first one is realizing the problem, realizing that you do it. And I think that if you look at the core of the Western world, and I don't know how many of you have traveled internationally, but I've had the good pleasure of visiting ancient tribes in West Africa that were basically untouched by the modern world. And I saw how people live differently than they live in the Western culture where we have so much. They have so little, but they are so amazingly resourceful and loving and compassionate and kind. Blew my mind away. And when I got back to the West, I realized that at the core of most of the Western world, at the core of each one of us is bullshit. When you think about it, okay? And now don't get mad at me. I'm calling bullshit on myself too. Yeah, like, how do you measure success? How do you present what you have or who you are, and why do you present it that way? We con ourselves, right? We want to be seen as nice people. And then, when we're behind someone's back, we have a tendency to maybe do a little stabbing here or there. But I remember my father one time, and I think I've told this story before, but I always wanted my father's approval. And I had a very successful time in business and financially at one point in my life. And I came bombing in my brand new BMW and my Canali suit and, Gucci shoes and yeah, Dad, I'm doing this and I'm cutting these deals and blah, blah, blah. He couldn't care less. And then I remembered years later, after I had gone through kind of a rough patch, I was broke, I was struggling, I felt absolutely, utterly worthless. And on a whim, my dad just turns around to me and he said, well, we were watching a football game. We were watching the Seahawks on TV at his place in Seattle. And he said, I'm really proud of you. And I looked at him and tears started to come to my eyes. I'm like, man, I've been wanting to hear this for my whole life. I said, what are you proud of me for, Dad? He said, well, I was thinking about your healing work the other day. And he said, think of how many people's lives have changed because of the work that you've done for them. And think of how much better their lives are than they wouldn't be. And in some cases, you've talked people off the ledge from suicide. They wouldn't even be alive if it weren't for you. And when I think about the impact that you've had on people, I just want to tell you how proud I am of that. I'm like, whoa. I realized that I was keeping score and I was measuring based on my bank account, the designer on my clothes, the label or the medallion on my car. My dad couldn't give a rat's ass about any of that, but he liked the fact that I had impacted the world in a good way. And that really, really woke me up to the bullshit that was inside myself. And it's funny how so much of the Western culture, we're built around money and fame. Those are, who do you talk about? When I listen to people chit chat about this and that, people who are rich, people who are famous, they seem to be the thing that everybody is aspiring towards. But even the rich and the poor and the famous and the unknown lie at the core of their being in bullshit. We're all tricking ourselves. And no matter how rich you are or how admired you are, you will inevitably sabotage yourself. Okay? Now think about some of the famous people that have had everything and then have lost everything. And you wonder why. And I think the fundamental reality is until you deal with your shit, the facade is just too fucking hard to keep up. And you, at some point in time, you feel like a fake, and you just have to undo it so that you can get down to what's real. Now, I got nothing against fame and fortune. I mean, oh boy, my dream is to have a Ferrari, and I would rather be wealthy and not famous so that I don't get harassed. Because I like Keith Richards. He said, the perfect job is to be a rock star that nobody knows. Because he can't go out anywhere without getting mobbed. So anyway, think about the people who have had it all together and then have destroyed themselves. I mean, it's crazy. I was just thinking in my own life, the big things that I've seen. O.J. Simpson came up, and I remember, all-American superstar. He was like the superhero of sports, and then ended up in jail for murder. Whitney Houston, the most amazing voice in music history, and ended up dying of a drug overdose. Willie Nelson, Mr. Country, lost everything to the IRS. He had a $16.7 million debt to the IRS. And, the cool thing about Willie, he got real. And he's like, all right, let's get this thing taken care of. He hired some people to take care of it. What was really cool is the government still the IRS seized a bunch of his assets, which were then purchased by some of his friends and given back to him. So, the more real you get, the more help you get. And I think that's something that's really important to look at, is when we eliminate the bullshit, we don't have anything to have to sabotage, and we can be real with ourselves. And that's when other real people come around, So the other guy, I went on this rampage on the internet looking for stars who had destroyed their lives. Charlie Sheen is one. I love that guy. What a great actor. He ends up drunk in a car with a hooker, and went through several stints in rehab. Mel Gibson was Mr. Cool and went on an anti-Semitic rant when he was drunk on his ass, and then was arrested for spousal abuse. Lindsay Lohan, you've got a child superstar, that drugs and alcohol. Bill Cosby, the father of all father, the dad of all dads, and it ends up that he's drugging and raping young girls. We will do things to mess up our lives like nobody's business, and many of these have done it well. I remember the pastor at a megachurch or the beginnings of a megachurch that I went to a long, long time ago. And I remember this pastor specifically doing a series of sermons on stewardship, being a responsible male leader in the house, and being a good citizen in the community. And boy, he was just like so good, and he delivered this great message. And then within 6 months, we found out he was stealing money from the church. He had multiple affairs with women in the church. And then he was taking kickbacks from construction contracts in the compound as they were building things onto our church. And I really learned a lot from this guy. And unfortunately, it wasn't the positive way, but it was basically whatever your rant is about, whatever it is that you are adamant about and critical of others about, is usually the thing that is your shit. Okay? And I've seen it over and over and over and over, particularly in either big business or religion. There was a guy, Ted Haggard, who was had a huge megachurch in, I think it was Colorado. But he had this huge anti-gay message. And it turns out he was gay. Bill Gothard was the pillar of family, focus on the family was his thing. And man, he was really like the epic leader of integrity. And it turns out that he was molesting girls in his congregation. It's just like horrible stuff. Jimmy Swaggart, of course, remember him? He'd get on TV and cry and be all holy and everything, and then he got caught with a hooker. everybody, no one, let's take it this way. No one is immune from self-sabotage. Okay? But the thing is, the sooner you become aware of what you do and how you do it, I've talked about the tricks and triggers before. However you do it, or let's say this way, the more awareness you bring to the possibility that you could maybe have some shit that you need to deal with, the less you have to destroy. Okay? And trust me, I have rebuilt my life many, many times throughout this lifetime. Sometimes I wonder what the hell. And people go, oh, it's because you're a Scorpio. And that's what Scorpios do. They dive into the fire and then come out of the ashes. Well, you know what? I'm pretty fucking tired of that. So the step that I'd like you to take after listening to this podcast is sharpen your awareness and tune into what's going on in the background, because the big influencer of our bullshit is our self-talk. And most of the time it's self-talk that we're not even aware of. It's kind of like when you're watching a movie, you're watching, say, the police walk down the street, the detectives, and they're looking for a guy, and it's dark, and, you know, the city. And in the background, which you're not paying attention to, you can hear the wind, you can hear the crackling of their shoes on the pavement. You maybe hear a horn honk or something in the background, or people talking. But it's not sound that you're consciously aware of. It's background noise. And what we have in our minds is background noise that is negative self-talk, that is unconsciously leading you towards making decisions that will sabotage yourself, that will cause you to behave in a way that is not consistent with your core values or your core beliefs. But when you begin to be aware of that talk that's going on in your mind, check in during the day every once in a while, just like, what am I thinking about? What's running in there? Because your brain's really, really active. Check it out. Start becoming aware of what you think about, and start listening to how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others. And here's Psychology 101. Whatever bothers you about someone else is something about yourself being reflected back to you. And I know that's a hard pill to swallow. It sure is for me, because I have to look really close at who I criticize and who I am unfriendly to, and then look at myself. So that's where we're going to start. The next podcast, we're going to go into owning your shit. But this time, for the next few days, be aware of what you're thinking about and how you're talking to yourself. As you become aware, just simply shift. And it's not necessary, or simply stop, or remind yourself of what you stand for, who you are, and where you want to be. That's it for now. Check out the GeniusLab session at tobychristensen.com. You can email me if you have any questions at toby@tobychristensen.com. Thank you for listening to the podcast. In a couple of days, we will have another, and we will keep this series going. I'm excited about it, and I hope you have a fantastic day.